afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We are ready to get things underway. A lot has happened since I have been on this podcast, which was last Wednesday, this past Wednesday. And we all know what has happened since then. So I'm getting my first swings in at now talking about the vacated Michigan football head coaching position. And everybody out there has an idea about what Michigan should do, who they should bring in, and all of that kind of stuff. And I'll look forward to, seeing some of the things that you have to say, the Michigan fans out there. Right off the top, and you think about that cost should be, Michigan should spare no cost. If there is a coach out there, and, I think the highest paid coaches get, I don't know, is it $13 million right now? And that's per year. It sounds crazy. So is Michigan prepared to go 15 per year for some of these coaches? I've seen a lot of people say, well, you got to make so-and-so say no. I agree with that. If you put together a list of who you think of you and who I think are the top 10 coaches in college football, most of them meet the criteria of being a coach that has won, being a coach that has won it more than one place. I feel like having ties to the Midwest is something that it was always a prerequisite for a coach at Michigan. Things have changed. We were like, it doesn't matter. I saw that when Michigan State hired Jonathan Smith, they're like, who cares if it's Oregon? Look at they're all in the Great Northwest, is in the Big Ten, and everything else. And I was thinking, not really. That's not a good fit. Jonathan Smith, I didn't know what kind of coach. I didn't know he was going to be, terrible the way he was, but I think that having a coach that has some Midwest ties and understands the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is still important. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Michigan man per se that we always go through. And some people are like, forget all that. Forget the Michigan man. But hey, you have to learn from the past. Rich Rodriguez came in here, and that one of the first times I saw him out at a charity golf outing, and he was asked about Michigan, Ohio State. And if I could have talked to him before that, just say, yeah, Rich, it's the greatest rivalry. You can't wait to be involved in it. That's not what he did at all. He was like, I know rivalries. I know the backyard brawl, West Virginia and Marshall. I was like, no, you totally missed that. You totally missed it. So he was a bad fit. And so you have to have a coach that understands Michigan, understands the Michigan rivalries, understands, there's another thing with Jonathan Smith when it came down to Michigan. He was like, yeah, we're really excited to take it on. What? He better come up with a little bit more enthusiasm than that. I don't care who the next head coach is, but if he comes in, one of the first things he's going to be asked about is Ohio State. And if he's like, yeah, we're just going to treat that like any other game. We know everybody likes it and everything else. No, bad move. All you want for Christmas is a new Michigan football coach, but you want one that understands the rivalries and understands what it takes to win at Michigan. Those are some of the things that I have thought about. People that dismiss coaches that don't have any head coaching experience, I get that. I was talking with someone today, and he said, you don't come to Michigan to learn on the job. You have to have head coaching experience. But if you could I get that. That sounds like a pretty good prerequisite. Know the rivalries, know the state, have head coaching experience. But if you can tab someone who's an up and comer, that it would be his first job. Boy, it's I would say unlikely, but my point is, if you could land someone like that and get them in, man, it can be worth its weight in gold. But I have a bunch of coaches myself that I'm going to go through and talk about. You've heard them all. If you've been paying attention since yesterday, I wasn't watching Sports Center and all this, but yesterday I was. Yesterday I was just at the gym, walking on the treadmill, and every name there's names, just names galore. Just being thrown out there. It's like anybody can just, and I'm going to be throwing a bunch of names too. Just name. And, and I'm thinking, that guy's got no shot. I was back today. I was out in Ann Arbor, and a friend of mine, he's a huge football guy, not a Michigan guy, but he loves football. And he said, I hadn't seen him for a couple of days. And the first thing he says to me is, what about Coach Prime? And I said, oh, that's a good one. And so I was reading, and he was serious. He's serious. So there's guys like that. Dave Portnoy, who, has a huge following, and, everybody, knows what he's all about. And John Gruden works for him. But trying to put John Gruden at Michigan, that's one of the most ridiculous things ever. But, but it doesn't matter. Like everybody can have their own opinion. You might. The names that I'm throwing out there, you might look at and say, you have no idea, you're stupid and everything. So that's it. It's all about beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And, we go from there, and we're going to take a lot of your feedback to kind of show we are. We got a lot of Michigan fans, and I value what you're thinking about, even though I just said, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And a lot of people, and I don't want you to think that, maybe you were thinking, oh, yeah, Coach Prime, well, he thinks I'm stupid. I don't really think anybody's stupid. Everybody, can have their own ideas and everything else. I don't know. We don't have that much influence, if any, about who this next head coach is. Warde Manuel's the one that's calling the shot. And let me give a thought on Warde Manuel, who is going to be making the call on the next head coach. I think there's more people that I think they downright hate Warde Manuel, or I think there's definitely a higher percentage than not. I don't think just it's a vocal minority that if they were calling the shot yesterday, they would have fired Warde Manuel. Even though Michigan has an interim president, they would just, let's bring in an interim AD, an interim. Here's one thing that I'm sure of, and I've watched it over the years. I've watched it at Michigan. I watch it at Michigan State. I watch it across the country. This is very important. Having university alignment. And the pros, it's different. You get your quarterback, you've got your head coach, and you've got the owner. That's really important to have that. And in college, having a president, having the athletic director, and having the head coach, that alignment is extremely important. Michigan has an interim president right now. So they're already in a spot. And I think that Warde Manuel, it's a tenuous spot for him. I believe myself, it's just one of these positions that is made for people to bitch about and complain about. And hey, he gets compensated really well. I'm not, crying any, stringing any harp for or whatever playing any violin for Warde Manuel. He's made millions, doing his job and everything else. But when I listen to people criticize him for the various things, there's plenty of things to criticize him about. And I think ultimately, once he gets this behind him and you get a new president, maybe he'll just step down and they'll separate that way. That would be my prediction on how it's going to go down. But when I hear people say anything about Jim Harbaugh specifically, that, Warde ran him off and not giving him any credit for keeping him, Juwan Howard situation, when he should be credited with how he fired Juwan Howard. When I hear, the hockey, it played out, there's some criticism there. It actually, if I'm looking at the brass tacks of things, how it plays out, who did you hire? How did that work out? It's worked out. And then when I hear people say, well, you can bring up all baseball. You have no idea about the world or how college baseball works if you thought he effed that up. So, but hey, that's how I look at it. Now, there are plenty of things when you talk about Ward where you can, do I think that he handled the Matt Weiss cyber sexual deviant situation well? As soon as he found out, he was gone. But it was under his watch. Jim Harbaugh and Connor Stallions ignored the rules. You can say whatever you want about those situations, but it was under his watch. He should have done a better job with some of the hiring, like Shemi Schembechler. Not doing a social media check of him was a bad move. I think that he can't follow. He didn't know Sharon Moore was having a dalliance, but it was under his watch. So, that goes on him. So there are things that ultimately I think that they'll show him the door. I also think that him just being in the room by himself, firing Sharon Moore, was a big mistake by Warde Manuel. That'll be another thing if I was looking at the ledger about him doing a good job, bad job. Bring somebody else in. Bring somebody from HR in. Bring somebody else sitting in the room. He did it by himself. Bad move by Warde Manuel. So there's where I'm at with Ward. I'll bring it down if you were just joining us. Ward, I think ultimately, with all the stuff that has gone on, and he's seen a natty for football. He kept Jim Harbaugh around when many wouldn't have after 2020, after 5 and what would have been 6 losses against Ohio State. He fired Juwan Howard when there was a local report a week or two before the regular season that he is safe and he was staying around. And I had to come on here and tell everyone, let's wait to the end of the season before you believe that report, because I did not believe that report. And you know what he did? He fired him. That was a tough thing to do, knowing that he hired him, knowing that he was a Michigan man talking about Howard, knowing that he was a black head coach, all of those things. And he fired him. Give him credit for doing that. But no, people want to do that. He hired Dusty May. But in the end, it's built up, and they'll probably they should let him head off himself and retire after he gets this particular crosses this bridge, which will be his most important. Football is always the most important, and so getting that done. So that's where I'm at right off the bat. Now you can just throw names left and right up here. I guess that's what I'm going to be doing here as well. Let me work through some of what the people are saying. I will have. I'm getting a text. Who's the Michigan ex-coach? Maybe I shouldn't have given that guy my number. Throwing names out here. Should I just go through all of what everybody has to say? Let me go through a couple. Let me go through a list of names, and then there will be some, I'm sure, that I will have not covered, and then we can cross that bridge when we go to them. Now, as I said at the start, if we were sitting in the room with Warde Manuel, he should already have a long list, even before he got the news that, yes, in fact, he did dip his pen in the company ink. So he should have already had that 2-3 deep. But you do go to a list of all of these top guys, including Nick Saban. You make Nick Saban, you say, how about $20 million a year to Nick Saban? He says, no, thanks. And then you go to Cignetti at Indiana and you say, hey, here's $16-17 million a year. And he'll say, no, thanks. Lincoln Riley's out in Southern California, and he's just been there for a minute. And you're going to say, hey, here's a couple more million. I don't think that's happening, but yeah, go ahead. Same thing with Kirby Smart. Same thing with Dan Lanning. Same thing with Elko. And Elko's in the playoffs. Texas A&M can pay him whatever he wants. I don't know why any of these guys, even if Michigan was going for $16 million a year, would leave where they're at. Saban in retirement. Indiana with Cignetti. Riley, Smart, Lanning, and Elko. And I understand if you're like, I don't like this coach, he's a jerk, or he's an a-hole. Okay, but these guys are all pretty well respected, and I would call each and every one of them, and then I would get turned down because I don't think that they're going to come to Michigan. So that's first things first. Then there's the Michigan men. That there's a lot of people that are they always cringe recoil when you hear Michigan man. Don't just hire a Michigan man. Well, how about these two Harbaughs? If John Harbaugh, if the Ravens don't make the playoffs, there's a 50-50 shot that he could get fired by the Ravens. Now, it's going to be a couple weeks. There's still 3-4 more weeks to go in the NFL season and all of that. And so you wouldn't even know if he would be getting fired. But if they got to, and people would be going nuts. But if you could just tell me that Michigan could land John Harbaugh, would that be something that I would like? Yes, I think that would be great. I think he's a great coach. That his last name's Harbaugh. I mean, his last name is Harbaugh. What do you want me to say? It would be a great hire. I think that would be a grand slam hire. Jay Harbaugh, no head coaching experience, great special teams coach, the son of Jim. Doesn't fit a lot of the criteria that you're looking for, learning on the job, no head coaching experience. So I'd put even though you at least have to think about Jay Harbaugh, and maybe the next head coach will be thinking about Jay Harbaugh as a coordinator. I got to draw a line through Jay Harbaugh. Jesse Minter, the national championship defensive coordinator, beloved by Michigan fans. He does not have any head coaching experience, but Minter might be one of 2 or 3 coaches, and I'll see if there's somebody else that comes in there but he might be just one coach that I would strongly consider to be the head coach at Michigan without having any head coaching experience. These are the Michigan men, and 2 of them, one brother, one son, and one current defensive coordinator of one James Joseph Harbaugh. So that would be a real maize and blue Christmas. But John, although it'd be painful in the weeks ahead with the Ravens, falling out of the postseason, and then, well, I don't even know if they're 500 right now, but they'll probably still make it, but they might not. And then the Ravens could fire John Harbaugh. He's a great coach, but they've talked about doing that. They might just move on. That would be a great fit. All right, so those are the maize and blue men. Here's the one I talked earlier that my friend was, he was serious when he said, Deion, the amount of players that he would bring to Michigan. And I explained to him that there's 0% chance of Deion Sanders being the head coach at Michigan. No Michigan, he's got no fit. I mean, he went to Florida State. There's nothing with Deion Sanders. And then he came back and said, except that he would bring in great players. Okay, but there's 0% chance. These are the guys that I think there's 0% chance, but I've seen their names. Portnoy is pumping up the tires of his employee, Gruden, because he likes, sitting around, that's why he's doing it, but I don't think anybody is taking him seriously at all. And then Kelly's name, Brian Kelly, who at one time you might have thought, Brian Kelly, but Brian Kelly is also one of these guys who is a terrible fit at Michigan. Nobody likes him. He's a complete phony, and diehard Michigan fans would stop being Michigan fans if somehow Kelly would be hired. So there's a 0% chance that BK is going to have it his way and be hired at Michigan. You might not like to hear that. Or you might think that there's a 1% chance. I'm telling you that there's a 0% chance that Kelly gets hired. So there's me being the Grinch on any Dion Gruden or Brian Kelly type names out there. If you were thinking, now we get into some more serious candidates that we look on here. And I already saw right off the top, it was Jacob, who says Dillingham at Arizona State. Dillingham has done a really nice job at Arizona State, but this is like John Cooper. John Cooper was at Arizona State, and he came into the Midwest, and he didn't understand it. Dillingham is not a Midwest guy. He's an Arizona guy. He is a desert guy. You hand him a snowball, I'm not sure he's going to know what to do with it. I don't think that they should touch Dillingham. Nice coach if you're out on the West Coast, but he's got no Midwest ties. I say no to Dillingham. I'm against not necessarily anybody bringing it up, because I see a lot of college football guys, and they'll just say, hey, it's different now. Stop being, stuck in the 70s or something. Okay. Why don't you get a better feel for the University of Michigan if you put Dillingham's name out there? Not, anybody here in particular, but Jed Fish. Jed Fish, I think, is an excellent coach. I think Jed Fish should be a nice offensive coordinator in the pros, maybe even, maybe even a head coach in the pro. But Jed Fish, and I saw Jake Butt put a nice list of all of the attributes and just what he thinks of Jed Fish. I put him on the list. I think Michigan can do better than him, than Jed Fish. But, I liked Jed Fish when he was at Michigan. It's just, it's not popping for me. For me, it's not. It could be for you. While Jeff Brom, I like Jeff Brom. I like him as a coach. I like him as a quarterback coach. I think that he would be an excellent hire for Michigan. I think they could get him. So he's one of the strong candidates for me. I'm putting Brom in my top 3. He's at Louisville. Clark Leah, Notre Dame defensive coordinator. I like him too. These are all guys that I think that are just hot names for Michigan. Fish, Brom, Dillingham, Leah. All of these guys I think are going to get considered strongly. Leah's a little bit like Fish. I like him. There's a lot of things about him. I think Michigan could get him. I think that ultimately he could be the next Michigan football coach. But I'm also, just like with Fish, I'm going for bigger names and even better coaches than Fish or Lee. I've already addressed Dillingham. And then there's Kalen DeBoer. I like everything about Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer fits the criteria that I'm looking for. I think that if Alabama loses, the Tide fans will be drive them to the airport. I don't know if there's an airport in Tuscaloosa. Probably. I think they'll drive them to the airport. So Kalen DeBoer should be up on the top of everyone's list. But all of these guys, I think these are the most likely. I've said what I had to say about Dillingham, Leah, and Fish in the mix. I like Brom. If I had to order these coaches, I would have DeBoer 1, Brom 2, Leah and Fish. It's tough to go 3 and 4 between that, but I'll go 3 for Leah, 4 for Fish, and then Dillingham bringing up the rear with no Midwest ties. Fine coach and everything else. Just not a fit at Michigan. say unfortunately or say whatever. A lot of people will disagree with that one, but that's my feeling, and I'm just giving you my feeling on it. That's it. So there's the coaches and how I see that. We go through some of this. Vincent talking about David Shaw, who is, I've always liked David Shaw. I like what he did. I actually like him more in the media than I do as a coach, but I thought he was a pretty good coach too. He's with the Lions right now, but I would not go with David Shaw. Lorenzo likes Dillingham. I've already said him. Marcus Freeman's an interesting one. I don't think Marcus Freeman is going to leave Notre Dame for Michigan. That doesn't make any sense for me. Why would Freeman be at a top job like Notre Dame and leave for Michigan? Why? Why would he do that? Lorenzo says Aaliyah. And then here's Minter. Is his show cause up? Yeah. I mean, it's ticking down. What is it, December? Is it right? Is it on Christmas or a little bit before Christmas, a little bit after? And then Lorenzo saying, don't forget Mike Hart. Yeah, I'm not forgetting about Mike Hart, but, the next head coach, thinking about Mike Hart. And Mike Hart's not really, I like Mike Hart, like him. I wish him the best and everything else, but he's not really on my radar. Linda would love to see Jesse Minter. Not sure if he would return to Ann Arbor unless Warde is gone. I don't know why Jesse Minter would have anything against Warde Manuel. I don't know why. You'd have to explain that to me. Ted is thinking dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. D original is talking about Dilly or Brady. Are you talking about Tom Brady or Brady? Who's the other Brady? The Brady that was the offensive coordinator at LSU, who is now, let's see exactly where he's at. The Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. Joe Brady. Interesting selection of Joe Brady. And I don't know if you're talking about Joe Brady or Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady sounds more like a joke, but Joe Brady, the no previous head coaching experience. Joe Brady. You're not thinking Joe Brady before Tom. Tom Brady. What are we doing here? I've gone through the list. I'll go through it there at the end. The original does not want DeBoer or Fish. The last time Michigan was looking for a head coach, or maybe I thought that Jim Harbaugh, I think this is what it was, when Harbaugh had one foot out the door and was in Minnesota, there was at least 24, maybe 48 hours that we all brought our list like we are now to the table. And then Harbaugh came back. PJ Fleck was on my list at that point. I like PJ Fleck. I think he's a decent coach. I think Michigan could do better. I didn't even put him on my list. I hadn't thought about him. I just think that there's better candidates than PJ. The fans really like Dillingham. Here's somebody else that likes PJ. LJ wants to know what happens to the current coaching staff. Are they all intact until after the bowl game on 12/31? What happens to the current coaching staff is they're under contract, and they will all be contacting their agents, and they will all be ready to either whoever the next head coach is to come back to Michigan, or they'll be looking to head elsewhere. It's tough. I mean, that's, I saw a lot of people, and you understand this, like, oh, I feel bad for Sharon, or they feel bad for his wife or the kids. That's all understandable. You feel bad for the Michigan football community, the Michigan assistants. Those are ones, those are the ones, Sharon, put him over there. It's understandable about his wife and kids. Although I found out in the last 48 hours that it is more likely that a woman that gets cheated on stays with her husband than it is that there's a divorce. So, like, I thought automatically, like, oh, those kids, well, they're not going to see their father. I used to see him, after the game, hugging Sharon and everything. It was cute. And I thought, oh, that's terrible. But, look it up. It's more than likely that they stay together than they split, which, you hear everybody, oh, it's terrible for, oh, okay, it's terrible, but they might stay together. They missed out on Campbell again. What Campbell are we talking? Oh, Matt Campbell? I don't know if they missed out on him. Out of all the candidates, are we saying that, oh, Campbell should be the one? He doesn't jump out to me that he was going to be the coach that I would have hired if Warde would have fired Harbaugh after 2020. Matt Campbell wasn't going to be at the top of my list. That's been his pinnacle. Since then, you look at him, is he jumping out like, oh, man, he's just kind of nice. He's kind of nice. He's a little bit like PJ Fleck and Matt Campbell. You ever see those guys in the same room at the same time? Rowing the boat will not work at Michigan. Kalen DeBoer, if he can sign inside of next week. Otherwise, give me Dilly. There's another. Boy, the if you're just joining us, we're asking, what you would do and everything. Dillingham is the hot name for the fans. Not for me, but for the fans, yes. But DeBoer, what I'm thinking is that the name that was on Warde Manuel's desk on his 2 deep was Kalen DeBoer. And so Warde spoke to Sharon Moore this summer, according to reports, and asked him if, he was having any inappropriate relations. And he said no. He also, according to reports, talked to the woman. She said no. But so he knew that, and everybody was telling him, it's going on. Would he have already had a conversation with DeBoer's agent saying, hey, look, this is a tenuous situation up here. We could be looking for our next head coach, and you're at the top of the list. I would think so. I'm not saying there's already a deal in place, but I do think that DeBoer's name would be number 1 on Manuel's desk, and he would have at least made some overtures there. So that might be happening. DSK, not DeBoer, Leah from Vandy. 2-time coach, 2-time SEC coach of the year. There at Vandy, comes from Notre Dame as a defensive coordinator, so knows that Midwest. Obviously will know about the Michigan-Ohio State. If you were looking for a downside, coaches that go somewhere, he's had the success. He hasn't had the chance to go anywhere else to have success more than 2 places, but also he's just had the one quarterback. And look, he's on my list of the top 5 guys, but it is one of those things. He's had a quarterback, and that's you could say a lot of the reason for his success. So there's one of it. Need a fiery coach with an offensive mind. I like having a coach with an offensive mind for sure. Fiery. I like a fiery coach too. It's not necessarily, you got Jonathan Smith on one side with absolutely no fire. And then who would be, Kirby Smart. You want to have somebody else that would be like, constant fire. Fleck maybe would be that guy. He has a lot of fire over on the sideline. I'm not saying it's overrated. I like fire. And a coach. Junk says we need to keep Alford and Morgan. Yeah, when you start thinking about it, I would like to keep Alford. He's done a nice job. In Michigan, when you look at the running backs of Jordan Marshall and you've got Savion Hyder signed, it would be nice to have those two players. Be a lot of other players that we would speak to, but Underwood would be number one, but number 2 and 3 would be Marshall and then also Hyder. So you would think, yeah, Alford, why wouldn't you keep him if you were the next head coach? And yeah, I like Lamar Morgan. Cut from a different cloth says, no, the areas are different and not alike at all. Having Midwest ties is a legitimate point, having lived on both coasts and attended U of M. There's one person that agrees with me. Yeah. The part about huge buyouts and big money is something that I am not considering. I am thinking that Michigan is at a pivotal point in their history, and money it should be sparing no expense. They've got deep pockets. They can shoot the moon. They've got enough money, and I'm not thinking about money at all. Money shouldn't matter. So buyouts, $15 million a year. I think whoever's the next head coach should get paid the most money. If you're going after one of these top guys, make him the highest paid coach in college football. The original's going down the list of what's Drinkowitz done a nice job at Missouri. I've already given my thoughts about Brian Kelly. I think there's a 0 chance of that happening. Matthew says DeBoer is not leaving Alabama. I understand that. If you say, why would he leave Alabama? The idea is that Alabama fans are a bunch of jerks and, are constantly trying to push him out in his first year when he almost made the playoffs. And then, they're still unhappy. And once they lose on Saturday, if they lose, I should say, they'll be screaming and yelling, about getting him out. He might be like, the hell with this, but it's going to be like that he's going to be like that up here too. So I get it. But that's, you could even make the case that it's a step down and not, of course it's a lateral move, but 2 blue bloods, one in the South, one in the North, feel more comfortable at Michigan. If they didn't treat him, they didn't feel like he was actually getting treated well, but I would guess that he would stay at Alabama too, Matthew, to make a long story short. The original, there's like the 4th coach that he is named, Bobo. LJM 5952 would like to have a head coach who believes in a balanced offense and do not lose the running game. Also needs strong offensive line and defensive line play. Well, that's what has been Michigan's calling card for the last few years. So there you go. Tommy Reese. Matthew is saying that's his honest opinion. Reese, who is the offensive coordinator with the Browns right now. Tommy Reese, that offensive mind of Reese. It will not be Brian Kelly. DSK says, how about Schumann? Is he the DC from Georgia? If you're giving anyone their first job, yeah, he might be Minter and Schumann. Who was the other person that we were talking about that didn't have head coaching experience? I forgot now, but that would be in there as well. Yeah, there's only going to be a few of those guys that you're going to go. So Reese, I like it when people say they have heard. So if you've heard from your boys, you've heard from one of our competitors, that this is one of their guys that they think. Yeah, Prime. So, no Prime, no Drunkowitz, no Tommy Reese. We've got a lot. I can tell where people were at and where they're at now because I was going through my list and, people are commenting in as it goes. Andy, you'll have to go back with Dillingham. If he was hired, the fans would like him, but he's not a good fit. So I don't think he's a home run hire myself. I would say there's a big question about him. Now we have, Teddy saying it's going to be someone else. Who else besides Ward's making the call there? The regents handing him a list and saying who they want. Again, you need what you need is alignment. And if you've got anybody from the regents talking about this is what we're saying, Ward should quit if that's the case. This should be, he's this. You need one person making the call. That's like trying to have 3 offensive coordinators or something. Ultimately, one person. If they want to assist them and give them names, that's fine. Even if they would want to sit in, I don't know, on interviews, maybe, and they could talk about it. But one person needs to make the call. And when you say that he won't be making the decision on his own, that makes it seem like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. That would be a disaster for Michigan. That's it. D Original saying that Ward should clearly be fired. Absolutely not. That if that is your own opinion, I'm just against it. And whoever your favorite Michigan let's fire Ward is, I'm not calling you a clown, but there's plenty of people, they just don't think everything through. He's an easy target. I'm not here to it makes it sound like I'm friends with him or something, or I just look at the facts. I have looked at how it is put out there. So anybody saying that he would be clearly fired, I would say that they clearly have an agenda, that they clearly have not thought things through. That's all. And hey, like I said, I think that there are more people who think like D Original than think like me. I've gone through Ward and screamed and yelled about him already. Yeah, here's Jason. He's giving a little holiday wishes. He's giving a happy holidays. Penny is my goat. Jason wants to go all in on Marcus Freeman. I don't understand why he would leave Notre Dame. I don't understand why Mike Elko would leave Texas A&M. There's Joe Brady. That's the one that I was talking about with no head coaching experience, along with Minter. That would be not bad. The thing about Elko is that Texas A&M, you say, just throw him money. Texas A&M can, and so can Notre Dame. I mean, they match any $15, $16 million a year. And is Michigan a better job than Notre Dame? Is Michigan a better job than Texas A&M? Texas A&M's in the playoffs right now. Notre Dame could have been. Next year, if the rules were in, they would be. And so I just don't see Freeman or Elko leaving. So Brady is a name, again, if you think about what might be the best for Underwood, Joe Brady. So, if I completely understand that. And you say, well, you can't just think about next year and you can't just think about 2 years. Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for the greatest offense ever in college football at LSU. A lot of great talent, but he was the man at the controls there. So Joe Brady is a name without head coaching experience that I understand. Minter and Brady, no head coaching experience, that are 2 guys that, you have a rule. You say, I want a head coaching candidate with head coaching experience. That's my criteria. But I'll break that rule for Minter and for Joe Brady. Yeah, I think Warde will be gone. I think he'll step down at some point. I think that's right. Junk wants Signetti. Yeah, you and I think everyone else. So would Michigan pay him $20 million a year? Would he even think, of all, if it's money? Indiana, and Michigan, what he's done at Indiana is incredible. But how long would it take Indiana to get close to the facilities or the money? And I know Cuban's behind a lot of Indiana, but what if Michigan, makes the pitch? I know he's on that list that I put out there about the ones that I don't think are leaving, and yet that I'm making the call for. Signetti is right after Nick Saban on that list. John Gruden has more baggage than DTW. Yeah, there's no way John Gruden's coming in. Marcus Freeman played linebacker at Ohio State. He's not coaching at Michigan. Yeah, I know Dillingham. People like Dillingham, but defending Warde Manuel, what I'm doing is I'm defending the truth. And I'll argue with anyone. You want to go point for point on Warde Manuel? I win. What's your point? What, that he's done a lousy job? Incorrect. Warde Manuel kept Jim Harbaugh. There's a lot of reasons to be a detractor. And I said, ultimately, the things just piled up. He handled Weiss correctly, but it was on his watch. He kept Jim Harbaugh, but Jim Harbaugh broke the rules and put Michigan in hot water with the NCAA. But that that was on his watch. The Stallions fiasco was on his watch. There's a lot of people. It's funny when it comes down to keep chopping is that people that will use things like if you argued, yeah, he should be out. He ran Jim Harbaugh off. That could be your opinion. There's a lot of people that have that opinion. If you don't think that if you're not even willing to say, what about the idea that more than half of Michigan fans, alumni, and former players would have moved on after 2020 from Jim Harbaugh? And Manuel didn't. That was his best move. It produced the 3 Big Ten championships. It produced a national championship. He made a move that most people wouldn't. And the people that want to go after him, I say, wow, because they can't even bring themselves to admit that. Now, if you could bring yourself to admit that, then that's all right. But, if you're someone that's pounding the table, I hear people that are in politics are acting like, Warde Manuel didn't handle the Harbaugh Stallions because they don't listen to, and they can't think. I don't know, they can't think about themselves. They just listen to, people that just like to argue and say a bunch of stuff that like to hear themselves talk that, might get them some thumbs up on their podcasts or whatever else. But Manuel, whether you like it or not, keep chopping, did a good job navigating the Stallions Harbaugh saga. Even though there's plenty of folks that think they should still be fighting in the courts and should have never admitted anything to the NCAA and pushed it all the way to the end. I looked at it where if you could have got Michigan where they didn't have to scrub anything and they were eligible for the playoffs this year, to me, that was the idea. And he achieved that. So however you want to go about it, however you want to do it, I think the people that are against Warde, again, he's an easy target. But you just believe what you want to believe. Harbaugh would still be here. Michigan wouldn't have had to. You could still be arguing with Michigan State fans about we didn't do anything wrong. Connor Stallions, maybe they'd build a statue of him I mean, what are we even talking about? No, Gruden's not coming in. We know that. But look, we understand what's going on there. Michigan needs a coach that instills discipline. Yeah, I'm for players not headbutting the refs. It makes me go back to Sharon Moore. I hate that he was a complete and utter fraud. So many times I heard him talk. People would ask him about being the head coach at Michigan. He said, "I'm just honored. It's just such a privilege." I'd hear him talk about Bryce Underwood, and he would mention his parents, and both of his parents, and what a great job they do with him, and when he would talk about Michigan being a special place, he would talk about the families, and and then he would stand up there, and he's sliding into these hookers DMs, and what? I don't know if they're hookers, official. What do they call those? What? I don't know, whatever they're called. I should know what it's called, but it's a little discipline might be in order. Dilly is not going to win a natty at Arizona State. Well, he damn near advanced in the playoffs just last year. He's gotten a lot farther than Michigan has in the 2 years that the playoffs is going. Too much mess on his watch. He needs to go. Yeah, I think at the end, this is an all right way to say it. There was too much mess, and he will go ultimately. But when you say he needs to go, that makes you sound like he should be gone tomorrow. And I'm not one that thinks that. So that's it. Smash the numbers. Charles Woodson's good at selling whiskey, wine, and cheering for Michigan. He would be good. He's a good. I like Charles Woodson more than anyone else out there, but there's zero chance that Charles Woodson would even be considered for the head coach at Michigan. I mean, what? The big picture is that the school is a mess, and he is an AD. It happened on his watch. The big picture is that you put everything in there. The school is a mess, or are we talking about, basketball does not seem like it's a mess at all. So, this is incorrect. And all of the messes that you're talking, what are you're talking about Sharon Moore? Are we talking about Harbaugh and Stallions? Is that the mess that you're talking about? I felt that he navigated that well. So again, I mean, I guess we can sit here and argue until the cows come home or whatever, but you sound like one of those regents that, backstabbing regents or something. Yeah, Woodson, there's no Woodson. Is that, did you make a TikTok about Woodson being the next head coach and got some likes or something? Charles Woodson, come on. I don't know what did I say about the protocols? I don't know. I don't know what, so now we're arguing. Yeah, I don't know, arguing about Warde. Keeping Harbaugh was good, so tone deaf. Are you so? Are you, I got it. Keep chopping. You're a Michigan State fan. Is that right? Or is it, who's talking about? Who's always talking about chopping? Is that a Fitzgerald? It's one of those coaches. You're not a Michigan fan. There's nothing tone deaf about me at all. Jim Harbaugh, keeping him in 2020 was one of the great moves all time in Michigan sports history. So there's zero tone deaf about that. Zero. Oh, you've just outed yourself as you've got the Big Ten thing here. Keep chopping. Is that what I thought it was a Mel Tucker, like a Mel Tucker thing or something. 62 is too old. Who's 62? I don't know. John Beeline was also integral in hiring Dusty. Well, Teddy, let me bring it around, because as much as I'm over here saying, it makes me sound like I'm, Warde Manuel's best friend or something, or I'm even his friend, which is not true. I'm just looking at the facts. But like I said, I think that it was a good move by Michigan to not fire Warde Manuel yesterday, and that he will make this next football hire. And then in the new year, I think they should allow him to move on. And that's not firing him, letting him retire. Come up with some whatever. He just signed the 5-year deal. You fire him, you got to give him all that money. Again, I know money's not the biggest thing, but you sit down and say, hey, I don't know how much he was getting, but let's say he's got $10 million more due. Let's say, hey, give back 5, keep 5, whatever it is, and so long. And then the question would become, well, who would be the next athletic director? And Teddy has John Beeline's name down here. I would say that John Beeline is a well-respected man of principle, would be the perfect athletic director. And sometime in 2026, take the torch from Warde Manuel and move Michigan into the future. I'm with it, Teddy. And you're right, John Beeline. John Beeline, who was what's he suffering from? Where you get I forget, whatever. But he's hopefully he's doing okay now, and that just thinking people get a shot for it. Whatever. John Beeline for next Michigan athletic director. I'm for that. It's not phasing Warde out or, putting a dunce cap on him or canning him. It's allowing him to make the next hire and then allowing him to retire. Hire, retire, John Beeline, next AD. That's how I feel. No washed up coaches or no inexperienced coaches. It's not a bad way to go. But then you think, okay, you make exceptions to the rule. I don't know, I'm talking about the washed up coaches. I don't know how you'd make an exception to that, but that's where Joe Brady and that's where Jesse Minter come into play. I'm not taking them off my list. And on everything that I had here, I did not have Joe Brady on here. But if this whoever is thinking Joe Brady, or if Joe Brady is in the mix, I like Brady. I like Joe Brady. And so much so that why don't we just go ahead and enough for consideration for sure. OC from the Bills, that I can add him right now. There it is. Put him on that list. You can see all of the names. Put it there. No, that doesn't work. How about this one? Oh, yeah. There you go. Oh, wait. Bam. So you got Kalen DeBoer, Clark Leah, he's Vanderbilt's coach, Dillingham, Fish, and Brom. If I am whittling this list down, DeBoer 1. I like Brom. Leah. Those are my 3. DeBoer, Brom, Leah, and then you got Minter and Joe Brady. Not these guys. Minter was on this list, and Joe Brady without head coaching experience. I know Jay Harbaugh doesn't have any head coaching experience. I'm not ready to take that leap myself when it comes down to it. Oh boy, I'm just this is something to celebrate right here. You kidding me?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Let's do it.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Todd Monken. So he is also one that we would have to put in the Joe Brady, Jesse Minter category of having no head coaching experience. He's currently the offensive coordinator. So you got you got an offensive coordinator for the Ravens, and that's Todd Monken, right? So he was at Georgia. Is that like sometimes I get him and his cousin or his brother confused? But Todd Monken is a lot like Brady. Great resume, everything except being the head coach. So should Monken be on the list with Minter and Brady, Joe Brady? Antoine, you show up after 6 months. Let's do it. Let's put Todd Monken on that list as well. Not bad. Not bad at all. Ferris despises someone's comment. I guess what are we playing politics or something? I don't know this guy. Mar says that was rude to say. I'm not really sure what I said that was rude, so I'm sorry about if I said something rude. Teddy does not like John Beeline for AD. All right. That's all right. Hey, look, you probably, I've noticed them popping up on my own feed over the last, 2 days. It seems like everybody is, has a podcast and everybody's going to have their list, and now you're going to hear 100 different names, and you'll like what some people say, and other ones you'll say, I don't know. Keegan is saying that Ludwig is now with Texas Tech. He gone. Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen. Elko is too heavy. You mean like too heavy, like he's too fat or too overweight? Is that what you're saying? I hadn't thought about. I mean, so I don't know what you're saying. Too heavy makes it exactly what you're sounding like, and he is a bigger guy. So, is that going to matter to anyone? I mean, not like some fans. Obviously, it could. You, Vic. Maybe you work at Vic Tanny's or something, and you're prejudiced against overweight folks. Maybe he's on the way of a fitness journey of being in good shape. I don't know that. I haven't looked enough into Elko, and I'm not exactly sure you're even talking about his weight. So, but what else could you be talking about? He is a bigger guy, and so that's it. Yeah, the only reason that you bring up there's a lot of guys. Indiana's not letting Cignetti go. I don't think so either. I don't think Nick Saban's coming back to college football. I don't think Lincoln Riley's leaving USC. I don't think Kirby Smart's leaving Georgia. I don't think Dan Lanning's leaving Oregon. And I don't think Big Mike Elko is leaving Texas A&M. I don't think any of those are likely, but it doesn't stop anyone from saying, hey, why not at least make a call? That's all I think that people are saying when it comes down to those guys. And then the non head coaching experience guys like Jesse Minter Joe Brady and Antoine's guy,
Ho, ho, ho!
Todd
Merry
Monken,
Christmas!
is on there. Yeah, there's, I should have put Matt Patricia's name on this list. Let's go ahead and do that one. Can we do that? I will put Matt Patricia on the Dion Gruden, Brian Kelly list of having a 0% chance. I will quit watching Michigan. I will quit watching Michigan football if Matt Patricia is hired by Michigan. That's it. Jason, who's I think from Georgia, says no for Kirby. The original doesn't like coaches that might be in the playoffs. I get that. I don't think this is true. I mean, it could be February if the Chargers are winning, but if you're talking about him being with the not the non-compete, the suspended from college football, he I think that expires sometime this month. But if you have a different timetable, then he would be off the table. If it was April, where he was suspended out of college football, then you could be right. Mar says DeBoer's wife is from Ipsy. Ties to Michigan. Yeah, DeBoer's on the list. KDB. There it is. Jeff Monken is at Army. Todd Monken is at the Ravens. They are cousins. That's right. You're on top of it. Yeah, well, the thing about Sharon is it's over there. Jesse's going to the NFL before Michigan. Here's a racist comment. That's a racist comment, Mark. But I put it up there because there's a lot of people that act like you. And whenever you start talking about flippantly DEI candidates and all of that, we know we know who you are. We know what you're all about. Mark Smithson, 1087. Mark, whatever. That's it. When it comes down to that part. So we got 1,000 comments. Jed is honorable mention. Jed, you like Jed. Ricky Burt says, I am insane not to want Dillingham. I think he's a fabulous coach. I think he's tremendous in a lot of ways. He should be commended for what he has done in Arizona State. Ricky, for me, I don't know where you're from, but you live in Michigan and then you live down in Georgia. You live in Michigan, you go to California or something. I lived in Michigan and then I lived in England for a couple of years when I was 20 years old. It was a real culture shock. And even though it wasn't a third world country, it was a real culture shock for me. Dillingham, coaches that like John Cooper that go from the desert and you put them into the Midwest, it doesn't fit. It's not the NFL. I know there's more in the NFL and you think it's coming along that way, but he's got nothing to do with the Midwest. Could he identify the state of Michigan if you handed him a map? That's what you have to ask yourself. And does he know that Ohio is located underneath Michigan? I mean, I ask these things that sound pretty elementary to all of us, but he might be like, hey, you know where the Grand Canyon is? Like, yeah, it's somewhere out there in Arizona, and I've never been out to Arizona. I said it was like pictures of like golf. It looks warm. It's a place, and I have a friend. He's probably listening to this podcast. He went to Arizona State. He stayed out there. He runs in the middle of the night because it's 100 degrees and everything. I don't know. Does Dillingham know that it's that it's not that it snows up here and all that? You have to ask yourself that. Fit is something that needs to be considered. And that's okay. You don't have to consider it. You can be like, I'm not considering it because I think he's a good coach. There's plenty of good coaches that don't fit at Michigan in the Midwest. Not that they have to be a Michigan man, but they have to have some idea of this area and what it means. And I don't know, Dillingham, I'll give you this. Forgot what your name was. I don't know. People are just throwing names around. Here's Steve talking about has some Sean McVay vibes. I'll give you this part that out of all of these names, we could all come down with a nice long list. What would the list be if we were long? 25? Could we pare it down to 10 legitimate ones? I'm not talking about, this list. A lot of these guys would be on this list, and Dillingham is on this list. Let's say that actually this was the list. DeBoer, Leah, Dillingham, Fish, and Brom. We could all sit around and talk for the next hour about the attributes of all of these guys and what you might have questions about. And for me, Dillingham, it would be about a culture fit, about a culture shock, about not knowing anything about the Midwest and all of that. And we could sit down with him and in an interview, and until you sit down with someone in an interview, and this is the thing, and this is where you talk about all of these guys, and they make their presentation. And if Dillingham made his presentation and, he was like Sean McVay and he connected with us and he said, man, I can't wait to take a trip into Washtenaw County. I heard those Bill's hot dogs and the root beer are pretty good. And just come off as very personal, understands. I mean, lives the Ohio State rivalry is Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is something that has been top of mind for me the whole life. My point is that connecting in that interview, as much as we all have our names and what we like about their resumes, you sit down face to face with someone. If we were all in these interviews and we all talk to them, we would connect. Some of these guys would connect more than the others. And usually when you listen to recruits or you listen to coaches or you listen to people that hire the coaches, you know what they say? A lot of times, I knew right away. We sat down and I knew it. The recruits say that. We went in and it was instantaneous. I just knew that this was the place for me. So we can all have the names and we can all talk about where they're going to be. Having that face to face, and we can't have that, but it's something just to think about. And I'm just giving you my thoughts. And I will continue to do that, and we'll continue to kick it around. We're doing it all the time on the Maize and Blue Review. Come on and see us over there. That's what we're talking about. Talking about the coaching search. Who's coming? Who's going? I guess I'm going to have to. I have not updated this picture, which I will have to do for obvious reasons. And I will do that. Come see us over, follow the coaching search minute by minute on the Maize and Blue review. Also on this very feed that you're watching and listening to, join us tomorrow night as Michigan plays their first road Big Ten game of the year. Number 2, Michigan will take on Maryland. It's 8 o'clock after the game. We'll be right here and we'll be talking about it. So we'll see you tomorrow night, and then we'll see you back here on Monday talking about how that list, what's the list look like on Monday. Thanks so much. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we will talk with you tomorrow night.